Hey, welcome back. Another round of cards and comics. Today we're going to be discussing, why do we need PSA? Why do we need card grading in general? And why did this, turn into a thing in the hobby? And then while I do that, I'm going to share with you my most recent mail day. I just opened a bunch of packages and they're all in random order, and we'll just go through them and we'll talk about them. In the background, I got some of my Hank Aaron collection. 55 Aaron PSA 8, a 57 Aaron PSA 8, a 59 8.5, and a 68. Obviously, missing the big dog 58 and 54, but hey, I'm getting there a little bit. Let me know which one's your favorite in the comments. That'd be great, and we'll go through some of these. All right, so we're gonna start out looking at I'll put a little holder here so I don't have to hold the card the entire time. Take it out of the sleeve. All right. So we got a nice 1983 Topps Cal Ripken Jr. PSA 10. I really like these early 80s cards and 10s. They're good value. I'm not normally a 10 collector, but these are pretty good value. You can kind of see it here a little bit more. I really think it's a nice card, and obviously I think Ripken cards are on the upswing a little bit. His rookie's really taken off. A great set for a second year card, and hopefully it'll continue to go up. But I just like the card and just wanted it, so it's part of the collection. Next up, 1997 Topps Chrome Refractor Brett Favre. So, it's an 8, but this is a tough card to get. These cards have tons of surface issues, and again, really nice card. I like the those early refractors, 97 refractors on up. Really dig anything that's a refractor in the 90s. So, and a Hall of Fame player, really popular. Next up, Luis Robert 2020 Topps Series 2 foil rookie card. I picked this up. I felt, good price. His stuff is really hot right now. He looks awesome in spring training, or whatever we're calling this, summer training, and looks great. He's definitely a lot bigger than I thought he was. Just seeing him in person, and the guy almost looks like Frank Thomas out there. So I really dig his game. Hopefully it'll translate all year and he becomes, the big rookie from this class. So back to the PSA topic. I'll give you my history, in terms of just from a hobby perspective. I bought my first PSA graded card probably in 1990, I'd say 99, 98 period. It happened, I was, buying cards, only at shows or, with dealers. eBay wasn't a big thing yet in 97, 98. For me, it wasn't anyway. And I got a catalog in the mail from, when it was a game, who has their own sordid history. But they started out as an auction site, not really a site, just an auction house that specialized in auctions online. And so this was, them doing an online auction, and, actually it wasn't online, it was like by phone. So you had to call in, place a bid, you would call back to check on your bids, and it was a pretty big ordeal. And so I won my first card ever from PSA, a PSA graded card. It was a 1961 Roberto Clemente PSA 8. And the first thing I ever collected as a kid in vintage was I put together the 1961 Topps Pirate set, ungraded. And it was because they won the World Series in 1960. So all the World Series cards, all the stats for 1960 were on that 61 set. And so I always loved, since I was in 6th grade, the 1961 Pirates set. And so that was obviously the biggest card in the set. And so I picked it up. My dad thought I was crazy paying that much money for a raw card or for a graded card. It was way more than what the book value was at the time. We were so used to paying half of book value and really haggling down prices of cards. And so this was, paying 2 to 3 times the Beckett price guide for a card. Because you got to remember, there was no PSA SMR yet. There was no really eBay guiding for pricing, no VCP. So, and it was such a beautiful card when I got it. It blew away every other vintage card I had, in my collection. You could just see the quality. And as soon as my dad saw the card, we both agreed that, okay, this is the future. Like, these cards and these grades are truly near mint to mint cards. They're truly a better condition than what we're used to buying. When I bought a near mint card from a dealer at the time, raw, 9 times out of 10, I'd come home and find a flaw, or another dealer would when he would look at the card. And it was just tough. You would always, be wary of what you were buying. In fact, it burned me out of vintage cards. I quit buying vintage cards when I went to college, and I really was soured on it because no matter what I did, I always would buy a card and then I'd find an issue with it. And it would always be in a card that was advertised near mint or better. And so, in my opinion, it was these dealers at the time who really caused PSA to rise to prominence. It was not collectors really saying, I need this third party vindication so I can sell my cards for a higher price. It was, I keep buying vintage cards and they keep having issues. And, I need something that helps me figure out what the true grade is of a card. The thing that was funny about this time period was dealers fought it tooth and nail. A lot of my friends that were dealers just thought it was terrible. They had been grading cards for their whole life. Why do I need this third party to tell me what my cards are graded? And what was funny is the dealers who fought it the most, when they finally turned their cards in, to PSA, the cards they were saying were near mint or better came back 4s and 5s. A lot of their customers had sent the cards they had been buying from these dealers in, and they were coming back 4s and 5s instead of 7s, 8s, 9s. And so that really changed a lot of these people's opinions. As a consumer of these cards, totally changed my opinion of graded cards, because I was buying what was advertised. I wasn't coming home finding creases and pencil marks and things like that. Sophisticated collectors had been collecting their whole life, found out that cards in their hobby, in their collection, were trimmed, that they were recolored, rebacked from T206s. The dealers were doing this. And so let's not act like dealers back in the 90s weren't altering cards and trying to pass them off as real. They were. And that really caused this to kind of rise up. And it's very ironic, if you think about it, where we are today with graded cards, because it was totally the fault of dealers at the time overgrading cards and making it very difficult for people to buy vintage cards, because there were so many overgraded cards that people like me had given up on it. And I had switched completely to modern, because at least I knew if I opened a pack and got a card, I knew there wasn't going to be a hidden problem for the most part. So, okay, moving on to some more mail day card that's getting very popular today. And, I've sold off a few of my Mahomes cards, but, here's a Donruss, not the Optic, just the regular Donruss. This card actually is pretty tough to grade. I think it's probably tougher than the base Optic. A 9.5, which it is a very nice card. I looked it over when I opened it up, and it could be a crossover potential, but in general, this card is really spiking right now as well, all other Mahomes cards. Here's a card I think is just kind of a cool card. And I think it's from a cool set, which is just the Topps Reverence set. This whole set is just, really nice. It's one of the higher end sets that Topps puts out. It's an insert inside of the Topps base set, but it looks a lot like old Exquisite cards. I just think some years they've just nailed this design, and this is a Pettit card. I believe I paid around $30 for it. To me, he could be a Hall of Famer. They're numbered out of 10. It's just, these are cool cards, nice patches on card autos. You can't go wrong with that set. Up next, I am slowly putting together a 53 top set. Here's a card from my set, Irv Noren. You saw maybe in some previous videos my 53 Mantle. I picked that up at the National last year. And I've got a 53 page, which I'll show off at some point. So yeah, I'm slowly building that set. It's going to take time. It's not a main priority, but I love the set. I think it's the coolest top set ever made. I think it's better than 52 tops, by the way. And here we go. So this is a 2018 unparalleled Deshaun Watson Galactic. And we all know from the basketball experience how well the Galactics are received in basketball. And I think, it could happen for football. I took a little bit of a speculation on this card. So we'll see how it pays out. It's obviously going to be very dependent upon his performance on the field. But as a set, and as I do feel they're very cool cards, and we'll just see. Maybe pay off, maybe won't. I didn't spend a ton on it, but hopefully it does pay off a little bit for me. But back to PSA, without those dealers really causing, I think, consumer loss of confidence in the cards, I don't think they really would have gained as much traction as they did so fast. The other thing that PSA did was they totally changed what it meant to be a near mint card. And you could argue that maybe so did the other grading companies like SGC at the time, but it really changed the game because at the time, you could argue almost any card could be near mint based on the standards that people were trying to use, and this truly caused the tide to shift into, this totally changed, how people perceived, these cards. So, I think this is what you have to really understand about this whole, time period is, it was self-inflicted, and PSA really took advantage of the situation, grew their brand fast. The Honus Wagner for the #1 card that they graded obviously was a publicity stunt, to get them a lot of publicity early, and it worked. I mean, everyone, was talking about that card. I mean, it was a great storm of PR positivity for that, for PSA. And then, it took a while before some of the negative things about PSA to come out. They rode a wave of goodwill in the hobby for years. They were considered the guardians of the hobby. They had cleaned up all these dealers who were corrupt and then selling all these trim cards to us collectors, and they were seen as kind of the white knight, and that shifted a little bit. And I'm not going to talk today about some of the controversies right now with PSA. I'll put that together in a better worded video that with a little more research built into it, because I don't want to say anything that's too wrong in that context, because it's very important to get those facts right. But in this context, around my experience, PSA was a no-brainer in the 90s when I first started buying them, and the quality of the cards really was what drove it home. So here we are today. I think we're in a little bit of a different environment, where I think the modern cards are taking over the grading. The submissions are mostly modern, and PSAs, instead of really verifying the condition of a card anymore, they're really just generating value for the collector. A PSA 9 modern card versus a PSA 10 is not a lot of difference on a chrome based card. And so really it's just kind of like you're spinning the wheel, hoping to hit as many 10s as possible. And that's going to drive up your collection value, your resale value. And it's not protecting the consumer at all for the most part. It's just a way to create more premiumization of modern cards. Now, it's not a bad thing for people who love to collect that kind of thing. I want the best of the best, and so I'm going to pay more for it. And it's great. For some people, though, it's definitely not helping if you're worried about card prices. Because it's always the tens that are really driving this price up. But it's not. I don't think it's a bad thing. In terms of overall hobby health, because you have a choice. You can buy the 8 or 9, or the raw card. You don't have to buy the PSA 10. So you have a choice. So you don't have to play the game. But when you go to resell the card, I am sure everyone is very happy if the card grades a 10 because they know it's going to bring more money. So I think that's where we are today with graded cards. Moving on to some raw cards here. I didn't clean them up completely, but these are 2 cards that came in. Some football speculation, a Prizm base Kyler, and a pink optic Jones. Again, we'll see how they do next year. I mean, it's good to have a few of these cards, sitting around just in case. Another card that came in. I don't do a ton of basketball, but when I do, I try to get some of the nicer rookies. So I've got a Prizm Zion 9.5. We'll see. I mean, having a few cards of his isn't going to hurt anything, for sure. Back to some lots I bought, some more vintage cards. So here's a PSA 9 69 ALK line. It's a really nice card. It's really well centered. I love these, cards, from 69 because they're, when you buy them and they're not tilted. 69s have this strange habit of tilting, and so they look crooked. Even on this card, you can see a slight tilt. Still a very nice card, and I'm really happy to get it because I actually didn't have this card. Another card I didn't have just for whatever reason. 64 Casey Stengel with the Mets. I just think this is a great classic photo of a classic manager. He looks so relaxed in that photo. But it's just so great. You see the old school jacket, the logos. It's just such a cool looking card. And from the same lot of cards, I bought this. Obviously, there's the grade, the 8.5. Looking for the Maris, cards. I don't have a lot of them. One of the cooler Maris cards, I think. I think all his cards actually are pretty cool. Even the Cardinals at the end of his career cards. A5, 64, nice card. I think it definitely met the grade. Here's another card I never have really spent a lot of time getting, and you would think, I would, based on who it is. Jeter, 8.5, SP, 1993. Obviously, amazing Hall of Fame player. This card is such a interesting card in terms of value. A 9 in this card and PSA is just nuts. Right now, even this A5 is fairly expensive. And this is really the card that drives home the value difference between PSA and BGS. Because there's a pretty big divide in those 2 grades and those 2 companies and what this card's worth. Next up, fun card. I'm a Pirate fan. 1940 play ball, Paul Wainer. 40 play balls are really value cards. They're 80 years old, and you would think that they would have gone up in value somewhat, but they've been very affordable and stagnant in pricing for quite a while. So it's a Hall of Famer. He's a Pirate. I don't have this card. It was a good deal, so I snagged it. And I imagine I'll try to find a higher grade version at some point. But for these kind of cards, I don't mind having a few copies. And then ending in on this card, and I'll flip it over so it's the way it's supposed to be. One of my favorite cards of all time, from one of my favorite sets of all time. This card is so iconic now. I've looked it over. It is a very nice 8. Not much chipping, not much anything real wrong with it. It's got potential. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, if I'm going to cross it over or not. I just love the card. I do have SGCs in my collection that I'm never going to cross over. I have a 56 Jackie Robinson 8.5 SGC card. I just feel like it looks beautiful in that holder. I'm not in any hurry to cross it over. This card I'm probably going to keep in this holder for a while, and I'll see. But I love the card. I'm really a big fan of this year and this card itself. It's always off center. If anyone ever tries to collect this year, they know it's always off center. So this one's centered. It's got nice corners. I mean, I don't know. If I get it crossed over, obviously it's going to go up in value, but we'll see. So that's it for the mail day today, and I'll just kind of end my. I just talked a little about crossing over cards to PSA, and and why do we have grading? And in the end, grading today is not what it used to be. It used to be about confirming the condition of a card that was maybe vintage for the most part. And it was to kind of confirm that you were buying something and getting what you paid for. Now grading is typically used to basically tier cards from being average, let's say, modern card, just normal pack fresh card, to a higher tiered, 10 card that you get more money for. And that's fine if that's, how we, the hobby, and how it's going to work. You just have to realize that is that, there is not much difference between some of those 9s and 10s. So if you want to, have the best of the best, then go for it. There's a lot of value in some of the lower gradeds for the same cards. And so that means that, collectors on all ends can play. So to me, in my opinion, it doesn't hurt anyone. But when we hear all these high prices, it's generally going to be in that top tier grade class. So if you want to play in that top tier, grade, have those kind of cards, you're going to pay a lot more for them. And that's just where we're at. And until, PSA cards don't drive that much value in between those grades, the 8 to 9, 9 to 10, there isn't 5 to 10 times the difference in pricing. It's not going to stop. PSA is going to continue their surge in pricing. They keep increasing prices every year. That's going to happen. So, this is part of the economy. Everyone's making money. And as soon as people quit making money, things will change. So until next time, hope you guys have a great day. Tune in to some of my other videos. I got my top 10 Griffey cards coming up soon. So look out for that video, and talk to you later. Bye.